Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Celluloid History Life is a Mystery channel. And as always, I'd just like to say I'm sure fans of the Kildares, Rebecca Fish Pond, Open Up and Not Forgetting Emergency Exit will be very pleased to see me back online today. Yeah, let's see what we've got on the agenda today. I've just been checking out the the BBC Daily Politics programme with Vicky Young, I think the presenter's name is, and quite interesting stuff really. I understand it's day 2 of the Tory party conference down in Manchester town. I think it was confirmed actually that the attendance is sparse, to put it politely. I think there's been disappointing numbers down there for the Conservatives' bash this particular year. Should we really be surprised? I'm not sure. Perhaps not. They had 1 or 2 punters in the studio there with Vicky Young. One of them was that chap Steve Baker, and another one was the Welsh fella that used to be an advisor for Boris Johnson. Can't remember his name actually. Begins with G. And anyway, yeah, Steve Baker. I mean, although as I was saying yesterday, I've never been a Tory myself, but Steve Baker seems to have his head screwed on. He was making 1 or 2 quite interesting points. I mean, one of the things he was saying was because essentially what happened was the subject came up of the fact that the Tories are currently being accused in more than 1/4 of just being a sort of, limp, watered down version of reform, Nigel Farage's reform. And Steve Baker made the point that I think the word he used was at the axis of politics has shifted. That might not have been the word actually, but anyway, the gist was that he was saying that politics used to basically be a case of socialism versus conservatism, socialism versus capitalism, if you like. And he was saying that now it's the most important factor within politics is identity. And I've already touched on some of this stuff in my previous videos, and what he helpfully outlined was that he believes modern or contemporary politics to be a case of communitarian nationalists versus cosmopolitan globalists. So there you go, choose your side, communitarian nationalists versus cosmopolitan globalists. Now, in terms of UK politics, basically the situation is that Reform are the communitarian nationalists, and they're way ahead in the polls. And the likes of Keir Starmer and I was actually going to say Angela Rayner. She's gone, she's gone under a tax scandal fug haze, if you like. The prominent members here, we've got Yvette Cooper, Emily Thornberry, Hilary Benn. Are they cosmopolitan globalists? The jury's out, isn't it? I mean, I think Starmer during the Labour's conference the other day, was certainly sort of trying to come across as a passionate lover of the UK. Whether where do his where do his true what is his true allegiance? Is it cosmopolitan globalism, or is it the UK? I mean, I think we should be told. But yeah, it's an interesting one, that. I mean, yeah, I mean, in some ways, as I've got older, I've become more of a sort of, I suppose I would call it realist. So it's a bit of a simpler term than a communitarian nationalist. But I have. I think I was doing a video the other day where, for example, I fairly long ago, dispensed with sort of wondering what it's like to be an Iraqi Muslim, or wondering what it's like to be a Chinese Buddhist. I think one of the examples I used was, or wondering what it's like to be an Australian Aborigine. And I kind of realised that I might as well just wake up and smell the coffee, so to speak, and accept the fact I was born in the West Midlands, raised in North Wales, and I've lived in London for 3 years and Manchester for over 30 years, and sorry, waking up and drinking the coffee. And in that sense, I suppose in some ways I consider myself a communitarian nationalist more than a cosmopolitan globalist. Does one like to think one has one foot in both camps? Perhaps so. But yeah, I mean, but the fact that the fact that I think I'd have some sympathy with the idea of being a cosmopolitan globalist does not mean I'm a Reform voter, because I am not. Basically, I'm a Starmer supporter that believes that Starmer hasn't really had much choice but to sort of fight, get in the ring with Reform, so to speak, fight them on take the fight to them, he hasn't really got much choice, because if he starts pussyfooting around areas of sort of global nationalism, etc., if he doesn't even get in the ring, I think he's got a cat in hell's chance of winning the next election. That's my belief. But I mean, and as for the Tories, are they just a watered down version of Reform? Well, Steve Baker today was making the point that no, that they're just facing the fact that this communitarian nationalism has sort of swept across certainly Europe and perhaps you might say the world, certain parts of the world anyway. Yeah, I mean, another thing they were talking about that came up, I believe Kimi Badenoch, their what's the word, esteemed leader is making a big speech tomorrow. But another thing that came up was this thing about there's too many people on the sick, basically too many people claiming benefits, and I don't know. One thing that struck me is I really do think that part of the future of politics is going to be a sort of recognition of this, of the fact that of the IT revolution that's occurred in recent years, and particularly since the millennium, I think you could say, really. I mean, what I mean is, by that is, I think that going forwards, the concepts such as the 4-day week may come into action and stuff, because there simply isn't the need for hands-on labour that there once was. I presume that's going to be the case. I really do. I mean, I'm not trying to promote laziness or as Christians used to call it, sloth. But I think that does need to be faced. I mean, there's other ideas, hasn't there, been bandied about, universal national income and stuff like that. A certain amount of money for all. But I did notice today, people in the studio, and they interviewed one or two people at the conference down in town in Manchester. One or two members of the Tory party. They're still pushing this kind of narrative of you got to get off your ass kind of thing. And remember the old Norman Tebbit famous quote, wasn't it? About getting on your bike. You got to get on your bike, and you've got to the promotion of sort of hard work. We didn't get where we are today without hard work, and this kind of thing. I'm not, I mean, but the thing is about the conservative politics, and now the Reform have taken over, haven't they, on that side of the fence? On the right. They're sort of, it's always it always strikes me as a bit rich, where you've got this sort of it's basically you've got these super rich people at the top that are sort of telling the as I was talking about yesterday, telling the whippet and pigeon owners and the people down south whose cousin used to know Reggie Cray, they're telling them to get on their bikes and earn the money, and so that an elite rich sector at the top could stay wedged up, as they say. However, I do not consider myself to be a Marxist. Obviously Manchester's the home of Marx and Engels, isn't it? I used to have one or two Marxist lecturers when I was studying history at university, but I don't really consider myself to be a Marxist. I consider myself to be a social democrat, But yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking, another thing I was thinking of that was a quote from the late Tony Benn, whose son Hillary is still a Labour MP, I believe, or certainly, yeah, he's still in the Labour Party. I know that much. I think he's an MP. Yeah. He was sort of talking about. I saw a clip of him once talking about the word socialism, and he was making, the point that the word is social, ism. The idea that, what does social mean? Getting on with other people, out and about on the streets, football matches, cafes, pubs, etc. Social, socialism, whereas it's kind of, I think what Tony Benn was saying is, I think his politics were more to the left than mine are. But he was basically saying, there's been, the word is, over the course of time, hijacked by the right into a sort of dirty word, and you can see evidence of that, can't you, in the media, where, they're a socialist, or they're a leftist, they're a lefty, and it's come. They also try and tar in this age of identity politics. They try and tar the right. It seems to me tries to tar the left with a when they say he's a leftist or he's a lefty or this, like, they sort of try and tar it with the notion of sort of weakness, don't they? And snowflake ism, a bunch of snowflakes, and this generation of leftists can't even decide what gender they are, that sort of thing. I mean, I think back in the day you had that, didn't you? In the 60s, you had sort of, you can't tell who's a boy or a girl because they've all, look at the length of their hair, and amazingly the Beatles, of course, were thought to have, sort of rebelliously long hair. In actual fact, they had fairly neat mop tops, didn't they? to start with. Quite short haircuts, really. Just they weren't short back and sides, wasn't it, really? But yeah, so yeah, just a bit there about how the the word socialism has been hijacked into a sort of dirty word, really. You know, as I say, I don't really consider myself to be a full-blown socialist. Actually, I'm not a Marxist, but I certainly, I suppose I'm hedging my bets, really, saying I'm a social democrat because it covers quite a lot of bases, doesn't it? I mean, I believe in the word social, and I believe in the word democracy, I suppose. You know, so let's put it like that. You know, but yeah, I'll wrap. We're way past the 10-minute mark. I hope everyone's still awake. You know, yeah, and the old ones are the best. You know, and I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. I'll just see what I'm going to talk about toward the end of my clip today. Obviously, like I say, I'm not going to sort of promise any particular, you know, time slots for future celluloid history, life as a mystery bulletins, you know. But it is Kimi Badenoch's big day tomorrow, so I'll probably try and do bulletin tomorrow. I would imagine, so to speak. So yeah. What have we got here? Yeah, I mean, I hope they're doing all right. As much as a Labour voter, you know, wants to wish the Conservative Party conference well. I mean, I must admit, you know, you hear people say in politics you need a healthy opposition, don't you? You know, and well, I suppose it's one of the problems there isn't with the healthy opposition for Labour, isn't it? And of course, Labour's under an awful lot of scrutiny for, you know, people talking about what a dreadful government it's been in this first 12 months, you know. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the few positives of recent times for the government has been Starmer's speech at the conference. I thought he did quite a good job, actually. I think speeches are important, you know. They can be make or break, can't they, for people? I mean, you know, they go down in history, don't they? You know, the speech Churchill made in the Second World War. There's a famous speech by JFK. You know, I think, was it JFK that said, "Do not ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." I think that was JFK. Then you had the famous Martin Luther King speech, didn't you? "I have a dream," you know, and sadly got assassinated, which unfortunately is an issue which brings us up to the modern age, with Charlie Kirk and with 2 senseless murders less than 10 miles away from where I'm sitting now in Heaton Park the other day. But let us not forget there is death and destruction occurring in Gaza, involving hundreds, probably thousands of people on a daily basis. And keep them in your prayers if you're a believer, you know. Anyway, time to wrap up, and I think I'll wrap up on the same subject as Vicky Young did on Daily Politics today on the BBC. They had this Green Party councillor from Maidstone who's proposing to pardon 17th century witches that were executed by Puritans 400 years ago. He's proposing they should be formally pardoned for being executed as witches, even though it was 400 years ago. Now, you know, I think to sort of, I think my take on that might be, you know, how do they? It's a bit like the sort of fact that we don't have a death penalty in reverse, in a way, in a sense. I think I'm all for pardoning people wrongly convicted of being a witch. However, it was 400 years ago, and you know, how do they know that there weren't one or two, you know, maybe 5%, maybe 2%, maybe 1%, maybe 0.5% of the hundreds of unfortunate ladies that got executed for being witches maybe there was, maybe say 1 or 2 out of 500 of them, maybe they were around the back with a cauldron chucking bits of frogs' legs and bats' wings and what have you into pots and going hubble double toil and trouble. Because after all, there was no internet then, was there, or Coronation Street. So I don't know about that. But I suppose I would end by saying, if indeed they were all 100% innocent, pure as the driven snow, then I'll take back those remarks. Suffice to say. Anyway, like I say, I'll probably do a bulletin tomorrow after Kimi Badenoch's big day, and as always, have a good evening, and yeah, as always end your political bulletins on the state of UK politics by slowing down the pace of the points you're making to provide them with more emphasis. See you soon.